watch the magic go down in the King's Court. The vibe's electric. If you don't like that, we're here to correct it. With the best in the game, we're raising the bar. From the hardwood to the airways, we're the King's shining star. Expect the unexpected. This is where it's at. From NBA insights to the latest chit chat. Grab your popcorn, sit tight, we're ready to roll. In the heart of Sacktown, we're feeding your soul. In the King's Court, the vibe's electric. If you don't like that, we're here to correct it. With the best in the game, we're raising the bar. From the hardwood to the airways, we're the King's shining star. With the NFL, Adams in the ring. Rhino's got the wisdom, hear the praises we sing. Court in session, it's a royal affair. With the fans all around, feel the passion in the air. In the King's Court, the vibe's electric. If you don't like that, we're here to correct it. With the best in the game, we're raising the bar. From the hardwood to the airways, we're the King's shining star.
Happy Tuesday.
It's Jerry Reynolds Tuesday, let the good times roll. King's legend in the house, he's got the
He'll be
game on
here.
scroll.
Jerry Reynolds joining us as he always does on the off seasons, on Tuesdays. Looking forward to talking with him. You all had some homework. We're going to redraft the 2022 NBA draft. That should be an interesting segment. Jerry has done his homework as well. I mean, Jerry probably doesn't even need to look at anything. The guy's remembered more basketball, or he's forgot more basketball than most of us remember. So if you have a question for Jerry, put it in the chat. We will try to mix them in. I know Tristan was probably studying all night, looking for something to get him back on the good side of Jerry. He started to get there until his comment yesterday. You know, Tristan, did I tell Jerry about that? What do you think? Yes or no? Think I did? Maybe I did. Anyways, we're taking you up the next couple days. No Napes. He will be off today and tomorrow. By the way, it's his birthday tomorrow. Make sure you send him some happy birthday shout outs. A lot going on in the world of sports. We've got the NBA finals to talk about. A little bit more complicated than we expected, especially with this Tyrese Haliburton situation, which I think is a very interesting one in today's day and age. And there's things that support both sides of the argument. Whether he should shut it down, whether they should try to save him for a possible game 7, or if you can walk, you go on the court. So we'll talk about some of that. Like I said, we will redraft the 2022 draft. Jalen Williams, where's he landing? Dropped 40 last night. Monster game. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. If you want to call the show, you can do that anytime. The link is in the chat. It is posted to the top of the chat, pinned to there. So you can hit that, or you can scan the QR code. Again, Jerry Reynolds joining us about 4 o'clock. We'll talk basketball with him for 45 minutes or so, and leading you into the Stanley Cup final. Winner go home for Edmonton. Can Edmonton come out and have a strong start? I don't remember the last time they had a strong start. By the way, Stuart Skinner going back between the posts for them tonight. He's got to have a good start too. Which way you going? Do you think this is going 7 and headed back to Edmonton? I don't know. Florida plays pretty damn well on their home ice. Looking forward to that. But the story of last night was the Thunder. Their suffocating defense. I don't know about any of you. I am claustrophobic. And it just started like within the last 10 years. Never used to be a problem. It's a problem now. I felt claustrophobic watching the first half of that game last night. They were up in Indiana's business, but still, when you got to halftime, you're thinking, man, this game should be a little bit more out of hand. Pacers hung around, but Jalen Williams just absolutely took over in this one, dropping 40. Here's your highlights.
Pump fake score, drives left in the lane. Throws it away, Shea the steal, 12 on Holmgren. Driving left, down the lane to the rim, lays it up left-handed, lays it home. And he's hacked in the act by Neesmith. Oh, the Thunder spurt back to go up 10. Jalen sizing up Neesmith, working the angle right. Ducking left to the foul line. Twirling and fading the one-legged 16-footer, nothing but 10. Dub's got 40. Dub's got 40. The Oklahoma City Thunder now 1 win away from an NBA title. They'll try and clinch it on the road in Game 6. A playoff gem.
It was a playoff gem. It has me thinking body of work with Jalen Williams. And yes, he plays second fiddle to Ja Morant. But it really does have me wondering, if I was starting a team right now, would I take Jalen Williams or Anthony Edwards? Maybe that's just because we haven't seen Anthony Edwards in a finals. Maybe that's because we've seen him struggle in the postseason. Different athletes, different players, but there's something special about number 8 in Oklahoma City. He is got a lot of different facets to his game that are very likable. So we will dig more into that game. The story of today, and it's not really a story, it was really obvious. Tyrese Haliburton, actually, during media day at the finals, or the day before the finals, he said he was, quote unquote, dealing with something. Well, last night, he aggravated what is a calf strain. He's undergoing some MRI testing. And if you watched the game last night, he didn't pass the eye test. Everything about Tyrese's game is explosion. Think about how many of those big shots he's hit in the playoffs. It's a step forward and a bounce back, usually, when he shoots that shot. He doesn't have that in his game right now. In fact, you can make an argument with the way that he was getting around the court last night, he might be hurting the team more than he's actually helping the team, which opens up a whole nother dimension of the conversation, which we will get to in a little bit. But here was the news earlier today from Shams on Tyrese.
Malika, the belief is that Tyrese Haliburton has strained his right calf, and I'm told he will undergo an MRI to determine the exact severity of this strain. And remember, this is the same leg that he had ankle soreness in last week. He was adamant after Game 5 that he would be playing in Thursday's Game 6 of the NBA Finals. It is the NBA Finals, but it was described to me today that if this were the regular season or even the first round, there's doubt that he would play. So once the Pacers and Haliburton get the results back on this MRI, on that calf strain, they're going to be able to identify the severity and then huddle and map out exactly what the plan will be going into Game 6.
So where do you come out on that? Certainly we need to get the information on what grade of a strain it is for Tyrese. It's ultimately going to be probably the Pacers' decision. You know he's going to want to be out there. In fact, there was one point last night towards the end of the first half where normally he would have been on the floor. He was on the bench, and then he came back in for the last minute. And again, if you look at his body of work over the finals, let's take the shot away from Game 1. He had one decent game. He really has not been that good. He's not been able to separate from defenders. The only person that has really opened him up and opened up the floor for Indy this series is TJ McConnell. So I don't necessarily look at Tyrese Haliburton as one of those guys that if he's on the floor, you got to pay attention to him. If you know that he has a lower body injury because his game is so much about explosion, it's not about spotting up, it's not about ISO. I don't know if he's that guy where it's like, okay, as long as he's on the floor, it's going to make things easier for everybody else. I think you could maybe make the opposite situation with the way that Oklahoma City plays defense. So we'll dig into that conversation as well. Trade going down today. New Orleans now owns the number 7 and 23 selections in the first round of the NBA draft. So teams are getting active. This is a day after the Desmond Bane trade, or actually that was over the weekend. So you have a lot going on leading into this draft. Reports that there's many teams that are in the top 3, 4, half of those teams possibly looking to move off of their picks. So we can dig into that. And then we've got this going on. Stephen A. Smith talking candidly about Memphis. Ja Morant taking exception to it. So we'll dive into all that. But before doing so, let's get you in on the show. What's up? Let's check the chat for the first time on a Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. Who was first in? Southern Justin, Iowa. Tone It Down Tuesday? Never heard Tone It Down Tuesday. It's interesting. Happy Tuesday to you, Jesus. Haxo Bar, good afternoon from Kansas City, Missouri. I love it. Very cool. Humid, I bet. Very humid in Kansas City, Missouri. Never been to Kansas City. Would love to make that trip sometime. Thanks for tuning in all the way from the Midwest. Stay safe, by the way. These tornadoes this spring and now coming into the summer have been freaking terrifying. Like, if you had to list natural disasters, I'm not talking about tsunamis. Like, I'm talking earthquake. Let's just leave it at that. Earthquake or tornadoes. Give me earthquakes all day long. The tornadoes are just terrifying. Middle of the night. And I know you don't know if an earthquake's coming. In fact, we had an earthquake on this show last year, live on the air. I'm looking around. I'm like, wait, am I tripping? Did my wife put something in my drink? Am I about to pass out? No, it was a little earthquake. But the tornadoes, man, those are freaky. So stay safe. MC, appreciate you, brother. Hope you are doing very, very well. Tristan in the house as well. Taco Tuesday, not so much. Kind of over LeBron right now. Wait, didn't the Kings have Jalen Williams, or was it Jaden Williams? They did not have Jalen Williams. I can promise you they did not. In fact, the Thunder have 2 Jalen Williams, if you're interested. Hallie is hurt, poor guy. Yeah, he is. What's up, Paul? How you doing today? Glad everybody's checking in. Jerry Reynolds, 4 o'clock today. Walt from Roseville moved here 3 years ago. Okay, there you go. Well, what was the move? Why the move? Just, you know what? Tired of California? Too many California people now in Idaho? Look, you're going to be hearing so much of this. I agree with Shams. I'm nowhere near Shams. I'm not trying to be Shams, but I think I've been pretty clear with my point that this CBA is turning the NBA on its head. The way things operate, trades, coaches getting fired. This is the tip of the iceberg. I think you are going to see so much turnover year to year. That's why what the Thunder have built is kind of this, I don't want to say like asterisk, because they did it before this CBA for the most part. But they have a chance in an era where they were trying to get away from these dynasties to have a dynasty if this were to continue. And they were going to have to make some difficult decisions as well as time goes along with their guys, because they can't keep everybody. I think there's a lot of teams, by the way, that would like Monk. BG, what up? Happy Tuesday, Rhino. How are you? Hope you're having a good day. It's been a good day. No real complaints on my end. I'm trying to think. Anything crazy happen? No, not really. Here, happy, healthy. Y'all are tuned in. Jerry Reynolds, 4 o'clock. What could be better? And we are redrafting the 2022 draft. So come up with like your top 7 guys that you think you would take today from that draft. Remember, the Kings took Keegan Murray with the 4th pick. I will say this about my list. Keegan Murray is for sure in the top 5 still in that draft. So it'll be interesting to see what all of you come up with. But let's kind of kick this off. Where do you want to start? There's a lot to talk about with the finals in Hallie. why don't we start? Because we're gonna be finals heavy to a degree with Jerry. What's up, Karen? How you doing? All the way up in Mount Shasta, right? Mount Shasta. I think I got that right. Where we weren't in Mount Shasta. Where did we go? We went to Reading. We went to Reading to see Jim Gaffigan a few years back. So we started going up that way. We didn't go all the way though. Let's see, Tristan. I worked all night on my list. Don't want to disappoint Jerry. Yeah, dude, you got it. You absolutely have to. So we will get to the finals in a little bit. I do want to talk about this discussion with Stephen A. Smith and Ja Morant clapping back a little bit. And Grant has made it no secret. So I have not been to Memphis before. I've not been to Tennessee. Grant, Jerry have been many times. And Grant said it is not a desirable place to be. It's not a desirable place to live. It's one of the least desirable cities to visit and play an NBA game for multiple reasons. The fans support certain areas, etc., etc., etc. So there's been a lot made about Ja Morant staying out of trouble, obviously his issues with firearms. And this all started back up with Memphis trading Desmond Bane, right? So this morning on First Take, they were talking about what Memphis is going to do from here. And I kind of was posing this question to everybody yesterday as well. I'm thinking, all right, well, is Memphis, and we went up and down the payroll on yesterday's show. And I'm like, are they going to go to a rebuild? Are they going to keep Morant and start building around? Well, here was First Take this morning. Check out what the dialogue was between the Morris brothers and Stephen A. Smith.
So you trade Ja. I'm hearing rumblings that they're going to pay Jaren Jackson. So do you start over with just Jaren Jackson as your main point of the team? What's the plan behind trading them? Are you getting players that are the same age as Jackson, are the same level as Ja Morant? Like, what is the plan if you're going to trade him?
And why? Because it's all first up. Everybody's dealt with that. He's a young player. He's going to mature. He's going to be better. Obviously, he understands he's in that life. Why would you trade him is the big question.
Stephen A.
I get where y'all are coming from, and I don't disagree. Cut down the highlights. I want to see the Twins when I'm bringing up the point I'm about to bring up, please. Ja Morant is a star talent in this game. And under no circumstance, first of all, let's get this out of the way. The gun-related stuff, I'm sick and tired of bringing that up.
Okay.
Younger, he made a mistake. Let it go. Let it go. That's not right. That's just not right. He's a good brother. You understand what I'm saying? He made a foolish mistake. You know, the NBA punished him for it. Damn, you know, we give everybody in life a second chance. What's wrong with him having one? Leave him alone, okay? Let's just.
Can we stop it there really quick? There's mistakes. And then there is like stupid mistakes that make you question if everything is functioning upstairs. Yes, Ja Morant is still young. Yes, Ja Morant has come into a lot of money. But there's certain, just think about it from a financial sense. You know, a lot of people push the narrative that Adam Silver wants Ja Morant to be one of the faces of the league, and that's why this gun stuff has been such a big deal, and he came down so hard on him. But if you're Ja Morant and you're looking to maximize your brand, you're looking to maximize your earnings, both on and off the court, how is that helping you? And I'm all for second chances. But there's a difference between second chances and rubbing stuff in people's faces. Ja Morant at the end of the season was doing celebrations that emulated shooting guns after everything he's been through. So, look, I want dude to be right, whether he's in Memphis, whether he's in New York, whether he's in Sacramento, whether he's out of the NBA. I don't wish anything bad upon him, but I don't think, Stephen A., you can write this off to, oh, he's being young. No, he is obsessed with something that is highly controversial in this country, and something that could take your life in a click of your index finger. A pull of your index finger. So I just wanted to stop it there. Stephen A. continues.
Talk about, let's leave him alone, recognize a good dude, talk about basketball. His talent is not what I'm questioning. You got to pay him because he's star caliber. You walk through the turnstile, see this brother play, and he is special. I'm not questioning his talent. But guys, here's where we got to start asking ourselves, looking ahead. I'm going to throw something by y'all. Since he signed his contract extension, he's got about 3 seasons under his belt. He's only played like 120 games. You know, he missed 32 games last year. Didn't play in more than 6 consecutive games in any stretch this season. Now I'm going to blow y'all away. Do you know he was on the injured list 15 times? 15. This season with 8 different ailments: hamstring, shoulder, knee, foot, back, hip, thigh, illness. 15 times. Now, the best ability is what? Availability.
Yep.
And if there's a question about his availability, now we got to have a different discussion, because you see, I need you on that damn court because you're going to sell out. You're going to make money for us because you're a showstopper. We know what you can bring. Let's look at the stats, though. Minutes per game, career low, 30.4 last season. 45% field goal shooting, not bad, but his lowest since 2021. 23.2 points, not bad, but his lowest since 2021. So when you combine that with the injuries, the trajectory doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. I'm not saying don't pay him. I'm saying we got to sit down and have a conversation. No, it ain't about his damn character. He's a good brother. It ain't about that. It's about your availability and how much you also want to be here, because Memphis ain't the ideal spot. When we look at the powers in the Western Conference, we got to make sure he want to be there, fellas. You got Dallas. You got Houston. You got San Antonio on the come up. You still got LeBron and Luka in L.A. The Clippers were relevant until James Harden decides not to show up for another Game 7. I mean, damn. I'm just looking around the Western Conference, okay, and Dallas is coming back and stuff like that. I'm like, yo, are you sure you want to be here? Because this is going to be a long haul for us to elevate ourselves to relevance once again. In 6 seasons, he's taken the team to the playoffs 4 times. He only has 1 playoff series win. 1. So all of those things I got to take into consideration. I'm not saying you throw him out because the brother's too big time and he's box office to ignore. What I'm saying is I can also get a lot for him. So I got to know you want to be here. And
so Stephen A. Smith goes on to really bury the city of Memphis, talking about how Jimmy Butler has said that players don't feel safe when they're in Memphis. And there's this big back and forth. So, of course, Ja Morant responds, which we will get into in a second. Now, here's the thing. If any of you are familiar with the Jim Rome show, you know that I have participated in that show a lot over the years. In fact, I have defended this city. I made a little bit of a brand around defending this city. And so I would go after other cities. I think it's kind of funny to make fun of other cities that maybe aren't as nice as your cities. And you have to understand the context of the Jim Rome show. Okay? You have to understand that. But they're not too far off from your city. So I get going in on a city. I would be a hypocrite if I said I've never done it before.
Let's go to Sacramento, Sacktown. Ryan in Sacktown. Hey, Ryan, what are you doing?
Hey, what's up, Jim? You're right, man. It has been a good day on the phones. A couple calls away from Emmanuel Decamou. Parody Larry's AI program works well. So think good. Eagles fan, look, Tampa did us a favor by putting you out of your misery yesterday. even Alvy was tired of hearing about, Jalen Hurts, is he going to wear the glove or not? But here's the bottom line. Turn that frown upside down, Jeffrey Lurie, Eagle fan. Your season may be over, but you still took a crap on Bakersfield. Hell yeah.
That's not a good call. No. You don't like that call. I don't like that call. Not a very good call.
Ryan, I know you think that was genius. I know you think that was so funny. You're wrong. Jeffrey Lurie, turn that frown upside down. Wait for it. You still took a crap on Bakersfield. I see what you did there, Ryan. It's stupid. You're still horrible outside of the beef segment.
So I've taken runs at cities. This is different, though. There's something to this, what Stephen A. Smith is saying. Now, was it the appropriate platform to say it? Maybe not. I think that is a little bit questionable. I think you're putting something out there that is probably more of a conversation behind closed doors, or at least you're checking with some players, because now a lot of that team is going to have to answer questions about that city. And what are players supposed to say? Yeah, it's safe. I love it here. Defend it. You've put them into a really bad corner, and especially John Morant, he's going to clap back. I appreciate him standing up for that city, but I do wonder if some of the things that happen in that city have affected the way that he has matured as a young man. I see a lot of you in the chat that are putting things in like Sacramento doesn't have a ton to do. We rehab players. Yes and no. This guy's been on how many suspensions? One indefinite? Because he shows guns on social media. I mean, think about for a second the whole, how this whole thing started. It was with an opposing team saying they felt or saw a laser coming through the window of their team bus that would normally be attached to a firearm. I mean, if you're already doing that, even if it's your crew, you got to relook at all this. And so now Memphis, you've got these big decisions to make. Jaren Jackson, a lot of interest in him. You just traded away Bane. You are trying to decide if you can be competitive in the Western Conference. And can you put your faith in John Morant? What Stephen A. Smith said about his availability, and I do not usually side with Stephen A. Smith. I side with him there because the availability, and did you hear the numbers that came along with it? Playoffs 4 times, etc. So as we continue into this offseason, I think this is going to be a really interesting thing to continue tracking. Because as much as everybody says they don't want to come to Sacramento, I understand that from an ownership standpoint. If an agent, a player says that, Sacramento isn't Memphis. Now, I'm not sitting here lobbying for Sacramento to go get Ja Morant. I don't even think that's being discussed. But what they're going to do could affect, will affect Sacramento indirectly in this offseason, because as you go down the list of the Western Conference, and I asked Jerry this last week, I said, Jerry, is Sacramento the most undesirable situation in the Western Conference? Meaning, if you're a coach, if you are a GM and you are looking at what you have to work with versus what you have on paper, are you in the most trouble? They're near the bottom of the list. You've got Phoenix that's arguably a little bit worse. Utah, I don't think is much better, but I think you have with Lauri Markkanen, you have a star, not a superstar. You have a star. The only team that I can really put below the Kings is probably Utah. Maybe New Orleans. Could Memphis be headed there? Who knows? It will benefit the Kings if Memphis rebuilds. I can tell you that. That will definitely happen. So we will continue to monitor what goes on with this little spat. I would just like to see some more growth from Ja Morant. He's got all the talent in the world. All the talent in the world. He's one of those guys that if you put the bait out, he's going to bite every single time. But I can't get mad at him for representing his city. Cannot do that at all. So anyways, that was my little take on it. Again, you've got Stanley Cup tonight. Who's going to be watching that? I will, for sure. Is it going to be the Panthers hoisting it for the second year in a row? Edmonton, Sea Dog, you guys going back for a game 7? They need to have a good start. They definitely need to have a good start. All right, let's talk NBA Finals. We've got Jerry Reynolds coming up here in about 30 minutes. We already mentioned Jalen Williams' big night last night, 40 points for the Thunder. The defense, again, claustrophobic. Not suffocating, claustrophobic. They were all over the floor last night, getting contributions from guys off the bench. The role players, they play so much better at home, both teams. This series heads back to Indiana. I said yesterday, if the series or if the Pacers won last night, they would win the NBA championship in 6. Now, I didn't anticipate Tyrese Haliburton re-aggravating that injury to the degree that it appears to be. We'll learn more once we get the results back from the MRI. We heard from Shams earlier on that. But do you think Indy can pull it off in game 6 and force 7? Jerry had this one going 7 all along. Here was Tyrese last night after the game on his injury.
It's NBA Finals. It's the finals, man. I've worked my whole life to be here, and I want to be out there to compete. Help my teammates any way I can. I was not great tonight by any means, but it's not really a thought of mine to not play here. If I can, walk, then I want to play. So, they understand that, and is what it is, and got to be ready to go for game 6.
So it's going to be treatment for him to have any shot of being effective if he does play. Rick Carlisle asked the same question after the game. Here's what he had to say.
This is a lifetime opportunity, and not many guys are going to sit, even if they're a little banged up. If you're injured, that's a different story, but we'll evaluate everything with Tyrese and, see how he wakes up tomorrow.
And remember, if this was the start of the finals where there's so much time off, maybe it's a little different, but I don't think it's much different because you're talking about a calf injury. You're talking about the soft tissue, the stuff that takes a lot of time. When Steph pulled his hamstring for the first time, you didn't see him the rest of the playoffs. So who knows what exactly and to what degree Tyrese was playing with before. But as I said at the top, you can't argue with the fact that he has not been effective. He's not been great. He has a great finals moment. I appreciate the way he hangs in there. He's never out of it. He's always dangerous, even if he's missed his last 20 shots. But that's when he's healthy. Tyrese is able to be special when he separates from other players. And he has not been able to do that, even when he's been at his healthiest this final series. In fact, the only person that has been able to really help them, Siakam, Haliburton, create that separation has been TJ McConnell. He was brilliant again last night, 18 points. So it brings up this entire debate, the two-sided coin. right? Because you have examples both ways. You have, I'm not going to say it. Well, I am going to say it, but they're completely different things. I'm using it as more of an analogy. Guys playing hurt, guys playing sick. Michael Jordan, the flu game in the finals. You think about that, right? Then on the other side of the coin, you've got Kevin Durant, who's playing with a strained calf, and then he overcompensates and tears his Achilles, which puts the entire next season on ice for Durant. So if you're Oklahoma City, you're thinking you are in a really good spot right now. You've got 2 games to win the championship. This is the first time, by the way, the Pacers had lost back-to-back games since March. If you're Indiana, are you thinking short-term or are you thinking long-term? You know what Tyrese is going to want to do. He's going to want to be on the floor. I just don't know that Tyrese Haliburton with a strained calf, assuming the calf is in the exact same spot as it was last night in the latter quarters, I think he hurts the Pacers more than he helps them. He's not that guy that's a decoy if he's on the court. He's effective with tempo. He doesn't have the ability to shoot his best shot, which is that step forward and the step back. Look at his numbers last night. So it creates this debate. If you're Indiana, on both sides, are you better without him injured? Number one, do you roll into game 6 and rest him in hopes of maybe having him for a game 7, or do you shut him down altogether? You heard Rick Carlisle. You heard what Tyrese had to say. Brian Scalabrine and Frank Isola debated this a little bit this morning. Thought it was a great conversation. Here it is.
Game that recently passed. And, it used to be if you were hurt, if you could play, you'd play. The media and the fans are at this place now where they think everyone should not play anymore. This is kind of like the effects of load management. Everybody wants everyone to not miss games. It's the NBA Finals. Give Tyrese Haliburton credit for being out there. He's out there during their comeback when they cut it to 2. The guy's still making a contribution. You guys don't want him to play? What are they going to punt a game in the NBA Finals?
Yeah. But don't you think that has to do with the Durant injury? That's where I look at it. So Bob Myers, as we played the interview yesterday, he reminded us that Klay Thompson strained his hamstring in the Toronto series. And then he ended up tearing his ACL. Now, related? I don't know. But Durant clearly was related. He has a strained calf, and he's nursing that calf. He comes back, takes a reverse step.
For weeks.
Correct. And then and they were down 3-1, right? During that time. And he comes back. That game was in Toronto it was 1-1-1. So it was 5. So down 3-1, they ended up getting the win. Durant pops his Achilles. So I think a lot of people are like, if Haliburton goes out there and plays and has an injury, we don't want that. So sit him out, right? That's how I think people think.
So how do you think the Pacers are going to handle this? I can't count the Pacers out. I can't. The Pacers' best minutes in this series have been with TJ McConnell on the floor. Look at the assist percentage. 31.9% for Tyrese Haliburton. TJ McConnell this series, 44.2%. I truly believe you have a better chance to win if you start TJ. And here's the other thing that I think happens if you start TJ. You're going to get a little bit more, in my opinion, out of Nembhard, who didn't score last night. or excuse me, Neesmith, who didn't score last night. No, Nemhard didn't score. My bad. Neesmith, you're going to get more out of him. You're going to have more shots to go around the court. And I think kind of like the Kings, because I believe this to be true of basketball in general. If you're a team that can share the ball and share it well and everybody's touching it, I think everybody plays better. The defense also has to be more on a string. They've got to pay a little bit more attention to everybody. I mean, the game plan's pretty simple. If Hallie's on the court, and we're only talking offensively, what about defense? I can't imagine. How many of you have strained your calf before? It's not anything that's going to kill you, but it is extremely hard to run. And in fact, you feel, you get, even a strain is basically these minor tears. That's how they usually classify it. That's what you're going to hear. That's what they're going to go off of with the MRI. They're going to see how many tears there are, and that's going to justify the grade of the strain. But you get popping. So if you're Tyrese mentally, is that in the back of your head? Is that going to affect the way you play? Not only are you hobbled, you're in your head. Ooh, I just felt a pop. Is my calf going to explode? I understand this guy is the heartbeat of this team, but at the same time, this team has been built so well together to compensate for missing a guy, even if it is Tyrese Haliburton. You are in a better position missing Tyrese Haliburton than you would be in missing Pascal Siakam, in my opinion. So regardless of what the scan says, I think you sit him down. I do. I don't know about game 7. Maybe you see where he's at, but usually these things don't heal in 4 or 5 days or improve enough to really be effective. But if you're Tyrese, think about that decision, right? You've got to look yourself in the mirror and decide, am I helping the team or am I hurting the team? Because the scan's going to tell you what the problem is, but Tyrese is the one that's going to tell you how he feels. So I just think how the Pacers are going to handle this is incredibly interesting. Definitely want to get Jerry's take on it again. Here was Tyrese, if you missed it, after the game.
Makes NBA Finals. It's the finals, man. I've worked my whole life to be here, and I want to be out there to compete. Help my teammates any way I can. I was not great tonight by any means, but it's not really a thought of mine to not play here. If I can walk, then I want to play. So they understand that, and is what it is, and got to be ready to go for game 6.
That's tough. That is a tough situation. You lead your team to the NBA Finals, and I feel for him. Both decisions suck. It's going to be very interesting. I'm going to keep my ear to the ground on this one. Again, here was Rick Carlisle.
This is a lifetime opportunity, and not many guys are going to sit, even if they're a little banged up. If you're injured, that's a different story, but we'll evaluate everything with Tyrese and, see how he wakes up tomorrow.
That was, by the way, Hallie tearing or straining his calf. You hear him screaming, "Oh!" How are you helping the team? Best part of the finals is we get more contenders in a weak-ass East. If Giannis stays East, I don't know, man. Giannis is slowly entering the Joel Embiid category. He made it through the playoffs this year, But prior to that, like, he had missed, what, 2 of 3 playoff series? I don't know. He's closer to being not available than available. Coach is basically going to tell him to man up, in my opinion. See, but that's where I think it's just so interesting, because if you're on that team and your coach is making that decision, yeah, you have to give your teammate respect for wanting to be out there and gut it out. But if you know that that guy is going to make your job harder, it's just a weird dynamic. It really is. Selfish and stupid. He's got to sit back. I'm not going to say it's stupid. He's not guaranteed another chance at a championship. But I guess the question I'm asking is, what is the right thing to do? I don't think anybody is going to sit back and criticize Tyrese Haliburton if he doesn't play. I actually think if he plays and he looks anything like he did last night, he'll be criticized for playing. Think about that. That is a complete swing of the pendulum. Usually guys get criticized for not playing or getting through an injury. I don't know. I don't. You can't be a team player and captain and you're hurt and know you're hurt and you want to play. Anyway, Dennis is going hard on the voice to text right now. I know that's a voice to text, Dennis. I'm going to put that on the list.
You just made the list!
Okay, so no one's dangerous if you're not making baskets. Disagree. There are certain players in this league that if they're on the court, you still have to respect them. And it's going to change the way teams defend you. Period, end of story. Even if you are playing hurt. Now, there's a very small handful of those players, and I don't consider Tyrese Haliburton to be one of them, especially with that injury. If we're talking about a finger injury, if we are talking about a left shoulder injury, so it's not his shooting shoulder, different story. But you're talking about what makes Haliburton's game go. It's the lower half. Wish TJ was in. I agree. TJ had a great night last night. TJ, to me, has probably been, the stats wouldn't tell you this, but I think TJ has kind of been the MVP of the finals. He's just done all the little stuff, because you saw through the first 2 games, they could not, Siakam and Haliburton, get open whatsoever. They couldn't. Paul, if Hallie becomes predictable, he'd be going to shut it down either way. Well, okay. And again, the flip side of the coin, what if he goes out there and plays and pulls a Durant, which none of us want to see? But now you've lost Tyrese Haliburton for an entire season in a time where the NBA is literally year to year because of the CBA, and the Pacers, who have not gone into the luxury tax since 2012, are already saying, yeah, we're willing to go into the luxury tax with this team. We're willing to take another run at it with them and improve it. People want to come here and play in Indy. You're risking that. There's so many dimensions to it. There really is. So many dimensions. Going through the chat. Jerry Reynolds, by the way, joining us here in about, 10 minutes. Can't wait to have Jerry with us. It's going to be his final say, not the team. I disagree. I think the team will have the final say. I do. Dame's another good example. That is another great example. Unfortunate. I shouldn't say great. Unfortunate example. Peter says, no finals MVP for Haliburton. If the Pacers win it, Siakam will have to get it done himself. Well, I think you just see a bigger dose of some of the guys that are getting low usage right now. Guys that are on the court and playing well. I guess that's where you have to look at really Aaron Nesmith, and you got to hope he can stay out of foul trouble if you play without Haliburton. But I think you ask more of Nesmith. You ask more of Nembhard offensively. Both of those guys can shoot the ball very well. And you know when role players, and those guys, I don't even want to call them role players, they're better than that. But when guys get more runway and they know that they're going to be playing, usually there's a different confidence and an aura about it. And this ball already moves around a ton on Indiana. In fact, TJ McConnell, I would say, is the one that has had the ball moving for Indiana in the finals. So I think that's the way to go. And I truly do think if Tyrese Haliburton does not play game 6, I think the Pacers win game 6. I will go on the record and say that again. If Tyrese does not play game 6, I believe the Pacers win game 6. See what Jerry has to say about that here in a few minutes. Jerry's been spot on with his prediction. He said Thunder in 7. So if you're not producing, you're not performing because of injury, you have to take a step back. Well, they didn't last night. They sure as heck didn't do that last night. And in what level is part of this, some of this, partially on Hallie? Maybe if he knew he was playing with something a little bit more than what he was leading on. Is that something that gets you backlash? It's going to get you backlash from the media, but your teammates, is that going to, you see what I'm saying? This is so complicated. So complicated. Matthew, wish we would just rebuild and try to finally draft a star. Can't do it while number 8's on the roster. No way you're rebuilding with number 8 on the roster. Get rid of everybody besides Keegan and Keon. Wow. I've never seen Keon spelt that way. How about that? Kion for Keon. You're like the spelling bee kid, Matthew. Matthew's like, I know it. I know it.
Kabara Goya.
Kabara Goya. I knew it. I knew it. I totally knew it.
What? Pacers win? No way. Yes, they win game 6 if Hallie does not play. Dennis, you and so many others that hit me up on the X said this was going to be a sweep. You were talking junk to me during game 1 when Indy had like 20-some turnovers in the first half. Like, are we watching the same game, Dennis? I'm sitting back. I'm cackling. Like my boy Kawhi. And then the Pacers win. Come on. OKC will finish the Pacers in game 6 because I won't watch. So you didn't watch it all, Peter. You being honest. You didn't turn it on one time. You know what? I know why Peter wasn't watching. You know what? There's certain reasons not to watch a game. This is definitely one of them. Getting out to Bennett. Whether it's Roseville, Rockland, Howen, Fair Oaks, prime cuts of seafood and steak. But it's not just that. Don't think of them as a steakhouse where you've got to mortgage the house to buy dinner. It's not that way at all. In fact, it's the complete opposite. They've got a ton of different offerings, including a bunch of different specials that run throughout the week. You've got weekend brunch 11 to 2 at all 3 locations, happy hour 2 to 6 p.m. every day of the week. Monday night wine and dine, 2 entrees and a bottle of wine for under $70. What? Seriously, Go check them out. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter too, bennettsrestaurants.com. That's where you will get in. They don't, trust me here, they don't blow you up with a zillion emails, but you do find out when they are doing certain specials because many times they'll roll out a weekend special. That's how Brian is. Incredible stuff. All 3 locations and accommodate your parties. They can accommodate anything that you need. Heck, they can bring the show on the road and cater the party for you. So go to bennettsrestaurants.com. Check out what they have to offer. Promise you that you will not be disappointed whatsoever. When Grant is in town, he pulls double days, legit, at Bennett's. Not lying. He'll go lunch and dinner. So it's that good. Go check him out. Huge thanks to Brian, Margot, the entire team at Bennett's for sponsoring the channel in part and sponsoring the King's Court today. So go get your gift cards, make some reservations, so much more. Look at the menus right now at bennettsrestaurants.com. Jerry Reynolds coming up in just a couple of minutes. I don't think I've seen a question yet for Jerry in the chat. I definitely know that Tristan's probably got his penned out and he's waiting for the theme music to hit. But if you have basketball questions for Jerry, let us know. iPad auto corrects fault, LOL. Yeah, iPads are kind of funny that way. You know what? Do you guys ever run into the issue, you guys and gals, where if you have multiple Apple devices, like if you're wearing the watch and you have your phone, that if you ask for Siri, the two try to compete and you never know which one is going to do the request? And more times than not, the phone starts ringing on your watch and you're like, oh my gosh, I wanted my phone to do that. I know, first world problems. But Apple, gotta love them. I'm an Apple guy. Apple guy all the way. But I get why people use PC. Check the score on ESPN twice last night. Told you that OKC would win. Liam could have doubled his 529 plan. Yeah, I guess he could have. I don't get down like that, though. Did you see the story about the tennis players? The increase in harassment because of online gambling. How many times are we going to keep having that same conversation here on this channel? Like, somebody needs to get in front of it. One of the leagues, if you're taking the money and they are a sponsor of your league, you're going to have to do more than share the profits, because there is a wave coming of athletes that are going to get, they're going to push back. I think they're starting to push back quietly, but there's going to be a pushback. That or something's going to happen. Somebody's going to be assaulted. A family member will go missing. Somebody will be kidnapped. Talked about the baseball stories where guys had to put their families into hiding in accordance with the police. That was less than a month ago. Nuts. Dennis, no politics here, bro. No politics. We don't do politics on the King's Court. Roadside assistance. It's crazy what phone company does that. Hope you check out the Waterhole show last night. What is the Waterhole, Peter? As we await Jerry Reynolds joining us here on the show. I have not checked out the Waterhole. Guess I'll have to check that out. Maybe. Domas, still looking for his point guard.
The biggest thing is we need a point guard, that's for sure.
Wondering what the Kings are thinking. Some different names that you've seen thrown around. Transactions beginning to happen. Are the Kings going to move up in the draft? Is there a player they like that they might target? Do you want the Kings to move up in the draft? I don't know, actually. You better know. If you're moving up, you better know you're getting the guy that you want. It's going to be interesting. Very interesting. The point guard problem. The last that I heard, there's not much of. I don't think Scott Perry is super interested in Trae Young. I've already made the plea about Drew Holiday. I just don't know that Drew Holiday would want to come here. But I could see a route where that could work pretty well. If you wanted to try to make a run with what you have and also give certain guys an opportunity, a bigger opportunity on offense, I like that. You're going to argue age. I understand. He was excellent last year against Dallas when they won the championship. He was fabulous. I think he's been underutilized in Boston. Darius Garland. Jerry thought Trae Young would be a better fit. Interesting. I don't want to give up my young pieces, though. That is for sure. I can't part with what I call my universal pieces. My guys that can go and fit in with the 29 other teams in the NBA. You've got to find a way to shelter in place and weather the storm of the next couple years and hang on to those guys. Because those guys, although you're looking at the scoring column, you're looking at the offensive side of the ball, what they do on the defensive end is what really kickstarts this team when they play the best. So anyways, we will talk a little bit more about everything that we've gone through with the finals. We will get back to the Ja Morant stuff, but Tuesdays are not for tacos around here on the King's Court. Tuesdays are for Jerry Reynolds. We are going to be talking in a little bit about the 2022 draft. We're going to redraft that. We'll talk finals and take your questions as well. So it's that time. It is Jerry Reynolds Tuesday.
It's Jerry Reynolds Tuesday, let the good times roll. King's legend in the house, he's got the game on the scroll. With endless coaching wisdom and stories to share. When he talks shit, birds, and Kings basketball, you better be there. Jerry Reynolds Tuesday's the place to be. Basketball magic, it's a sight to see. Chicken and dumplings on his plate. With a side of laughter, it's a perfect fate.
Happy Tuesday, buddy.
Yeah, happy Tuesday. Yeah, that always, if that doesn't get me going, nothing will, can't get enough of that. Chicken and dumplings on his plate. That's, haven't really had enough of that lately, but that's okay.
You know what? Sometimes moderation is a good thing.
It always is, actually. I don't necessarily follow that, but it is moderation in all things.
No doubt. Balance, you got to keep it. I like the new background, Jerry. You got the white brick behind you.
Yeah, we're up in Lake Tahoe, and of course, I'm just, willing to, to sacrifice some Tahoe time to be with the wonderful fans. So,
well, wow, thank you. I would not ask that of you.
Well, not for you. It's for the fans.
You're right.
Come on, Ryan. Come on.
Yeah, do better, Ryan. I was having a Tristan moment there, Jerry.
Well, Tristan is on a different plane. You don't want to go there.
Few fries short of a Happy Meal. So, hey, I got to hit you with this really quick. So I was driving in the car this weekend, and this jingle comes on, and it is a promo for French Lick, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And it's talking about schedule your golf vacation today, stay at the French Lick Inn. You can do all these different things. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. French Lick, Indiana radio promos.
Now here, let me explain this to you.
Yeah.
I've done this a few people, I know in Sacramento are fans over the years that went back there for that very reason. They've got 2 championship courses, a Donald Ross course. For those that know anything about golf, know that Donald Ross is one of the leading designers, and Pete Dye. They've got a Pete Dye course, which is probably the most famous golf designer. Those 2 guys, and they're both championship courses, and they have 2 4-star hotels there. Both 400 or 500 rooms, and plus, the usual Holiday Inns and Hampton Inns and Best Westerns, because it's a resort. It's a huge resort. Really, it's a small town, but it's a huge resort. And like I say, have casino there. So big lake south of town, man-made, but it's about the size of Folsom, and so it's one of those things where I like to say I lifeguarded at the big French Lick Springs Hotel for pretty much through high school and college, and best job I ever had. Didn't pay a lot, but man, there's a lot of advantages.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you were just getting tips for sitting there in the lifeguard chair.
Well, the great thing at that time, being 17, 18 years old, was that it's a resort, and a lot of families would come in the summer, and of course anybody. Any guys know that when your families come in, and 17, 18-year-old guys don't go with them. 17, 18-year-old daughters do.
Yeah.
And so it was like I say, even I don't care how ugly you were, by the end of the week, you started looking better to them. So
I love it. I love it. Speaking of ugly, how about Oakmont on Sunday in the U.S. Open?
Boy, it was, I loved it. I mean, I was so glad for J.J. Spawn after the way he started, and really came up huge. And those last 2 holes were just, you couldn't play them better. And, J.J. won, and then the course was second, I think.
Yeah.
I saw one of the people mention, what I felt about the course. I think they overdo it. In this sense, it's not about the rough along the fairways, but to have that kind of rough around the greens, I don't think makes a lot of sense. When you make a really good shot, it takes a bad bounce, and if it gets into what's like the first cut kind of stuff, that's a little more fair. But all of a sudden you're off by a couple of feet and you're penalized ridiculously. So that's just my opinion, and. Like I say, if you want to make the rough penal on the fairways, I get that. But around the greens, I really don't. And, if it's 40 yards away from the green, sure. But 5 foot from the pin, you really shouldn't be penalized 2 strokes in a sense sometimes.
Yeah, especially some of those greens at Oakmont are so big, but it's such a long course. It was so cool to see J.J. Spawn finish the way he did, because, Jerry, I mean, you couldn't have had worse conditions for the ball to fly, and you've got to hit it long, and it was so wet and raining. I thought it was cool because you see the pros have to take the shots that guys like you and me take every single round.
Absolutely, and I mean, too, when only one guy's under par, and it took us a 60-footer for that to happen on the last hole. An average guy that's got a 10 handicap would probably shoot 100 on that course at that time. It was the only disappointing thing. I really thought Sam Burns got a raw deal there. Not to saying he would have won, but he would have finished much higher. That cost him a couple of strokes and really did have to frustrate him. I think any of us would probably agree with that. And it's clear there was standing water there, because when he hit it, you saw it.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch the amount of water that was coming off the fairway, or even when guys, because they take such a divot usually because they're hitting behind the ball, to just see all the water come off that grass was crazy. But that's why they do the Open once a year.
It's open once a year, and like I say, it turned out that a very deserving guy won it. And he's been playing well. Obviously, not well known, but his runner-up finish to Rory and the players really put him, I think, as a fan of the sport, which I am. I mean, certainly, he he belongs. He can play with the upper echelon for sure, and which he proved more than conclusively this week.
Yep. You know, Jerry, I'm starting to think that Tristan has some type of inside source and inside knowledge, because look at this question. Jerry, do you like seeing the pros struggle at the U.S. Open, or does it ever feel like the course is trying a little too hard to be the villain? He typed that before you had your take.
Wow. Well, Tristan's right on. I mean, we're on the same page. I think they try a little too hard. You know, I like challenges. I think the U.S. Open should be a challenge. You know, I don't want to see 25 under par, you know, and 10 guys 20 under, that sort of thing. I think for a U.S. Open, but you know, the idea that, you know, you couldn't have 7 or 8 guys 5 under or better,
Yes.
you know, and some birdies and all that. I mean, I like. That's one thing about the Masters. I think it's a very fair test. It's the same every year, same course, and yet you're going to have to play some great shots, and you're going to have to be under par to win by several shots. And so I like that a little better. But you know, the British Open and the U.S. Open are very unique, and so, you know, I like I say, I would just like them not to feel like they have to trick them up and to the level that they do.
Yeah, 'cause they have to spend years getting the course ready to look like that. And to your point about the Masters, the technology that they have in Augusta, they can tweak the course at any given time with the heaters under the green and the amount of landscapers that they bring in. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, I'd go say that course. I mean, it's truly the immaculate. I mean, you know, I think they must cut the fairways with scissors. You know, I mean,
yeah,
it's just amazing. But anyway, that's a one of one, and certainly I understand with in the players' course, really there again, they play on the same course, so you get somewhat similar results, and there's something to be said for that. So I get the Open needs to be tougher, and both the British Open for the most part is, but it's not always, because over there it's all about weather. You know, if you get good weather, those courses are easy to score on, and if the weather's bad, they're impossible to score on.
Yeah, or if you just make bad decisions like John Van de Velde.
Yeah, well, yeah, there again, that's a one of one.
Oh man, oh my gosh, what a collapse. Okay, last golf question. What would be the number one course in your eyes to play if you had the opportunity?
Augusta. If I ever played golf, that would be it. You know, I mean, I don't have any desire to play, but to go back to, I've walked Pebble Beach with the former owner, Jim Thomas, had a big home right on 13th fairway. So we'd have a lot of meetings down there, which was, you know, he played, and, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful course, but Augusta, to me, that's still, you know, it doesn't have the ocean, but it's a more beautiful course for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, King's question for you, Jer. If you were there, Jerry, if you were there, Scott Perry of the Kings, how are you trying to trade up in the first round? Dennis, come on, man.
Well, it's going to be hard. I mean, I think there's going to be options, but I think the problem you're going to have is you're going to have to give up probably future picks, protected picks, and seconds, or group of seconds, which is okay. I mean, if you could give up some seconds and maybe a future first in 2030 or something, you know, protected for the top 20 or something, to top 15, and then get a 20th pick. You know, that's the type of thing that probably would make sense at this time, you know, just because this team needs new blood. And, but the only other way, I think, is, you know, is to trade Keon or Carter or Keegan. Now, Keegan would move you way up, but is that a smart thing to do? I don't think that it is. And certainly getting in the top 20 or so, you could probably do that with Keon or Carter. And I'm not sure certainly wouldn't do it with Keon, and I don't think I'd do it with Carter. But I think there's enough interest in Carter, probably more interest in Carter around the league than there is sometimes from Kings fans. They saw, I think the same people that saw him as a top 10 to 13 pick last year still see that.
Sure.
Even because he had an abbreviated thing, and we didn't see everything we wanted to see, but there's a good reason we didn't. And I just say patience is a virtue there for sure. I'd hang with that kid for a while. I mean, he's tough, he's scrappy. Summer league, it's going to be awfully important. So short of I just wouldn't give up the guys. Probably you'd have to give up if it's players, and the players that as fans we'd like to see them trade to get in the first round. It's not going to get you there. And so that's what I'd say. It would be, yeah, if Scott Perry could give up a 2020 protected pick, for the top 15, 18 and get a top 20 pick now, and maybe a second or two, I'd do that.
Yeah, Devin has been in Sacramento working with some of the Stockton guys getting ready for Summer League. I like what I've seen from him so far in this offseason. And I'm with you. You said the same thing about Davion Mitchell many times. You thought he could possibly develop into a Kyle Lowry type. And, he's not there yet, but certainly could be on his way.
Yeah, I really do think he's about a year away from kind of getting there closer. If he plays next year like he played the last 30 games, then you'd have to say he's there. But we have to see it.
Right.
The stats were there and all that for 30 games, but 30 games is 30 games. This is a big boy league. You got to do it for a season.
Yeah, and he's going to probably have the opportunity. I think he stays in Miami. So back to trading up in the draft, there's a lot of teams that seem willing to talk when it comes about trading their picks in the lottery. Jerry, is that something where you do it on the day of the draft because you're targeting a player, or is that something that you do in advance?
Well, I think you really want to have a good idea of what's important to you in advance. In other words, if you're studying the draft, there's certain guys you are confident would really be good if, in fact, you could get them. And then all of a sudden, at 10, the guy's still on the board, and the 13th pick is coming up, and that team, you've already talked to them that they'd be willing to move that pick, and then you say, well, okay, we for that pick, if you pick our guy Elmer Fudd, you pick Fudd when he's there, then we'll do this and this and this for you, that sort of thing. But that's a lot of teams work on that basis, of course, and because just to take the idea that okay, the guy hadn't been picked at 10, so we'll go ahead and trade you to get the 13th pick. Well, that doesn't make any sense because all of a sudden he's taken at 12.
Yeah,
and I know the Kings over the years, and it wasn't due to trades, but there was 2 times where I know that Jeff Petrie really wanted Joakim Noah with the 10th pick, and he went 9th. And then we took Spencer Hawes. Well, you can't take somebody that's not there, but that's who we thought would be there. It didn't show in the mock drafts that Noah would go there. And then the year that the Kings took Jimmer, everybody thought that Kemba Walker would be there. And so that was the thinking at that time, again, okay, well, Kemba will be there, so we'll just take him when he drops, when he shows, because he doesn't show up till 14 or 15. And, well, he went 10, and we had 11. And so that's that's the dangers of that sort of thing, and that's why if you do trade up for a spot, have the team take the player for you. I mean, it's kind of like, in effect, we took years and years ago. I took Billy Owens for Don Nelson for the rights later to get the trade for Mitch Richmond.
Mm-hmm. So. That's very true. That is very true. The Jimmer thing. I know that basketball's a business, but was there a larger business consideration because of the hype around Jimmer that kind of played in to picking him?
I don't really think so. I know I've heard people say that the Maloofs really pushed for him because they knew he'd sell a lot of jerseys and all that, which he did. And there's a lot of hype. But I think the thing was, when a couple of guys that thought would be there at that pick weren't, quite honestly, just thought he might be the best pick there. Well, he wasn't, of course, and didn't work out. I think the big flaw as it turned out, was that he really couldn't play point guard.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think probably if Jimmer hadn't come in on a team with DeMarcus at that time, or went to another team, he probably could have developed into an awfully good off the bench third guard, scoring guard. I really believe that. But this, timing and situation has a lot to do with it. And of course, he's had a marvelous career in China, which a lot of guys who are fairly big stars here haven't done nearly as well over there. So there's that. But yeah, that was the big thing. And then, of course, I always used to kid Jeff because he'd get kind of depressed about taking him, because it turned out to be a mistake. There's no doubt. But I said, well, if you held the draft over, Isaiah Thomas, who was taken 60, would have went in the top 7 or 8 with the career he had. I mean, still to date, the Kings have never had a player that finished in the top 4 of MVP voting except him.
Insane.
And that was with Boston, of course.
Right. It's insane to think about what he did in Boston, especially towards the end under the circumstances with the passing of his sister. But that was a hell of a run, Jerry.
Yeah, that's one of the most courageous performances I think I've ever seen. In a game 7, he scores 53, I think, against Washington to advance, and his sister had died, and he was playing on an injured hip, which I'm sure looking back, clearly it was a mistake for him because he's never been the same. It's kind of like a Bo Jackson running the football with a bad hip, and went from being maybe the greatest in history to couldn't play. And but that's a shame. But it was just an unbelievable year he had then, because I think 29 points a game, and I think until Tatum, I think he was the only guy to score close to what Bird scored in his career as a Boston Celtic. So it's pretty heady stuff. I always remember Danny had just a story. Danny told me, he said we were just, when we made that trade, he said, I thought he would really help us, but said, he made us a playoff team the day he arrived. He said, I was just amazed. And I said, I wasn't too surprised. I couldn't believe how the Kings really didn't see how good he was. Fans saw it, but the front office didn't see it.
He was such a salt of the earth guy too. So down to earth.
Just the best. Yeah.
The few times that I got to be around him, just an incredible person, very, very gracious, very nice, and very unassuming. You would not understand that he is an NBA basketball player. He doesn't carry himself that way.
No, he doesn't yet. Just truly a humble guy, and so sad because all he wants to do is play basketball and can't play at the level and have the career, that he wanted. It's kind of crushing. It reminds me a little bit of Bobby Hurley, how, his career was ruined and differently, but ruined, probably more massive injuries overall. But I don't think he's ever gotten over the fact that, that he couldn't have the career that he felt he should have had. And I get that with, any of us or everybody knows people that, not just in sports, but in anything, that for some reason just denied their chance to reach the level that they're expected to.
Yeah, and Isaiah keeps fighting. He's been on some G League teams. He got back onto the Phoenix Suns at one point. So I respect that a lot. Question from Matthew. What's the most memorable or favorite finals you've watched?
Ooh, NBA Finals, the most favorite. Well, that's good. This one here right now ranks in there. I'll say that.
I agree.
It's awfully good. Probably it sounds crazy, but this would really go back. But it almost go back to the 76 Celtics and Phoenix Suns. They had, I think, a game 6 or something was a triple overtime, and one of those deals. Paul Westphal made some amazing plays. John Havlicek, buzzer beaters in overtime, that sort of thing, and just great teams with Hall of Fame players. That one, was there. Of course, if the Kings had gotten there when they should have, that would automatically been my top choice. That's for sure. And I think I have to say I did like the Warriors and the Cavs series, especially when the Cavs won, came back from that brought some level of joy. And then of course seeing Boston beat I think in 2007, 8, 9, whatever, beat the Lakers.
Ron Artest.
Yeah, it beat the Lakers 1 year, and then I think the Lakers come back with Kobe and Powell to get them back or something. But
yeah,
so anytime the Lakers lost, that was always good.
That's always a good one. Yeah, I agree with you about these finals. If you're a basketball junkie, this has been just great effort-based basketball. You got to grind for everything. Jerry, do you think they've let a little too much go in terms of the whistle and the physicality in the finals?
I kind of do. I never thought I'd say that. And I know you didn't think I'd ever say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so much grabbing and holding and pushing that, when they do call it, you say, you have a tendency to say, well, why is that one a foul as opposed to this other one, type thing. And guys really taking some serious falls. But I mean, part of it is they're just playing so hard and so fast. Both teams really want to play fast. And, but yeah, I'd like to see them clean it up a little bit, but it's probably too late now in this series. You almost got to just let it play out.
Yeah, you have the Thunder in 7. They head back to Indianapolis with a chance to win the championship. All eyes on Tyrese Haliburton. I was talking about it earlier today on the show, Jerry, and Tyrese clearly last night was not able to be effective because of what he's dealing with his injury. How is this situation handled within a franchise? If you've got a player that says, as long as my heart's beating, I'm on the floor, but there's any questions on the back end that it could possibly hurt the team more than it could help the team, where do you end up? Where do you start?
Well, I think you really got to look at the best interest of the player first, and franchise second, and then you get into maybe third what the player himself wants. But let's say this. I mean, if in a couple of days Tyrese says I can go, and the doctors say hey, he's okay, he may not be 100%, but he's okay, then I think you as a coach, and then you play him. But so you got to, I think the doctors and trainers, they have to have their say. Now, if they say, look, he's not anywhere near 100%, and he could even, it could get worse, then you don't play him. And even at and even say at the time where the doctors and everybody clears him, say, yeah, we think he's good to go. He may not be 100%, but no, shouldn't be able to injure himself. Then you look at it, I think, differently as a coach. You say, okay, I'm going to start you, but if you're not playing well, I'm telling you right now, TJ McConnell's coming in.
100%. TJ McConnell is what has kind of opened up Hallie in this series when he's had those small spurts of success. Siakam to a degree. I think the Pacers, because you would be asking a little bit more of Neesmith, a little bit more of Nembhard, could be better off actually with TJ running the show if they want to play that up-tempo style.
Well, I say this. I mean, I think for one game,
yes,
I think they could beat Oklahoma City without Tyrese. And then you go back to then it's all bets off, obviously, Oklahoma City, and you'd need Tyrese at near his best to be able to win. And of course, TJ McConnell at his best.
Right.
You need all hands on deck. in a game 7. But I think for the, with the home crowd, and TJ's been there, done that. He's a veteran. As fans, we all know, damn guy's terrific. He could start on 15 teams in the league. And there's a lot of games. I've watched Pacers so much. I mean, there's a lot of games where he's been better than Tyrese.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been so productive, that. But but it's going to be a tough call. I mean, obviously with Tyrese, if he's 80% and they think he's not likely to hurt himself, then you want him out there. He's the leader of your team.
Where does the ultimate decision fall? Is it with the player or the organization?
Well, I think something like that should be with the organization.
Okay.
I mean, I think you want, it's the player's body, but there's a point where I really think, doctors and trainers, should take precedence, because you don't, here again, you don't want the Isaiah Thomas kind of thing. I mean, it's a credit to Isaiah, he did what he did, but the truth is he ruined his career.
Yeah, and windows right now in the NBA are short, and the Pacers, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, they're willing to go into the luxury tax for the first time since 2012, and you don't want to go into next season without Tyrese Haliburton, with a Durant situation where you tear your Achilles, etc. So we'll pay attention, see what they do, Jared.
Yeah, no, fortunately, he's got a little time. And the fact that he didn't look like himself, he couldn't get anything done. Now, part of it was Lou Dort. I mean, there is the Dort factor. I mean, if you're 100%, Dort, Tyrese has a much better chance of dealing with it. But at 80%, Lou Dort is going to get the better of him. And I think between Dort and Caruso, I mean, I don't care who you are. That's a tough go.
Yeah, they're going to wear on you totally. I guess I was trying to explain this, and it's my opinion. There's certain guys, if you're injured or you're hurt, but you're on the floor, it still changes how a team defends you because that player's on the floor. I feel like with a Haliburton that might be at 80%, you're not as worried about him because the explosion is from down low. His most effective shot is that step back or the step forward, step back, and he hasn't had that explosion. So I just don't see him falling into that list, Jared.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think with, they need scoring from him. He doesn't have to be the big scorer because Siakam, they've got guys, Siakam is really their best scorer. But he's got to be a threat to score. Right. You need 15, 18 points minimum from Tyrese. Yeah, I thought he did his passing was pretty good, but there again, as when a guy's, to me, the injury showed up with his turnovers.
Interesting.
He couldn't get away from defenders as going to the basket, got in trouble several times that, probably healthy, that might not have happened. But I've always thought that those are areas where it kind of shows up a little bit, and then shooting, what kind of shots is he getting? There again, I didn't think he got good shots. Not as you pointed out, I mean, he'd get those step backs or the little floaters.
Floater, yeah.
Very comfortable shots, but didn't see only a couple of comfortable shots, really.
It's a great point. Yeah. He's kind of gotten himself going in the series with that floater when he's been struggling with the shot, and it just was non-existent. Peter with a question. New Orleans got the Pacers number 23rd pick in 2025 and 2026 first round pick and a G League player. Should the Kings make a similar trade?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, those are good places to be. That's what I say. I think with the Pacers, and Oklahoma City, they've done everything right. Their talent base is terrific. It's for young, and they've got picks and a future. They may have to lose guys due to money at some point. They probably can't keep everybody, which is always also worth keeping an eye on. At some point, I think it's going to be tough to keep Neesmith and Nembhard both type thing, and wouldn't mind having them in Kingsland, I wouldn't think.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's it.
I was going to say it's shaping up from a point guard standpoint with this offseason. There might be more available than we initially thought. Teams that are maybe looking to make some decisions that you would expect next offseason, not this offseason. So I think the Kings are going to have plenty of options. It's just really trying to find that right fit.
Right fit and what it would take to get the guy maybe you want. I think some big names might still be available. I don't know if Kings are interested or should be. I wouldn't make that analogy, but I mean, I think obviously Drew Holiday, Darius Garland, I think Trae Young, John Morant. I think all those guys could be available. I mean, for different reasons. A lot of, in most cases, it's money. Big money long term, or the threat of that. And I'm not, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be too surprised to see Fox available.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
And with the second pick in the draft for the Spurs, the Harper kid is, looks like a pretty sure thing, And then of course they've got Castle.
Yep.
So they, it's like, and if it would take Fox to get Durant, I don't know.
I hear you. Yeah, I've heard some rumblings that the Bulls might be looking to make a decision with Kobe White as well. So we'll see. I want to go back to a player, though, that played last night. If you're starting a team, are you going to pick Jalen Williams or are you going to pick Anthony Edwards?
Whew. Well, I would have said Anthony Edwards for sure before. I'm not as sure, but I would still probably take Anthony Edwards. I like the maturity of Williams much better. I think he is the ultimate Batman. Or Robin more. I mean, really, yeah. He's perfect with Shai Gilgeous. I mean, those guys are just tough covers, and so if he were the main guy like Anthony Edwards is, it might be a tougher go. If he's the guy that the teams have to focus on. But that's a fair question. I mean, I like his maturity better. I think with Edwards, there's some growing up to do, but he'll do it. And and he's the best player on one of the best teams. I mean, so, and same age basically. Yeah, I'd probably take Edwards.
All right. Freaky athletic. Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, you wouldn't be, if you say, well, you're stuck with the second pick of that too, okay.
So true. So true. All right. So we had a little bit of homework. We said we were going to redraft.
Okay.
2022 NBA draft. So do you want me? Let me see if you can see this. I can put them on the screen if you would like.
Yeah, I can't really read it, so you're going to have to. And sadly, I had some notes on that, and I left them in Roseville. So
no worries.
There's some guys, yeah. So
you know what? Let's kick it out a week. We'll do it next week.
Okay.
We'll make that easy. We'll do it next week, and we'll see how you might have an NBA champion on that list that's definitely moving up in Jalen Williams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, he's definitely going to move up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Definitely going to move up.
Do you think the Desmond Bane trade, double question here, and then we'll get ready to get out. We'll end on the finals. The Desmond Bane trade, 4 first-round picks, 1 protected. Do you think that's going to end up being an outlier in this market, or do you think that's going to be kind of fair value?
I think it's going to be an outlier now, and for this reason. I mean, to me, the way Orlando was looking at it, we're saying, and I think they probably overpaid. Let's put it that way. Okay, in the real world, but they're saying, hey, we don't care. We're all in. Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs and Wagner and Ben Caro and Wendell Carter Jr. and you got an excellent bench, several guys all black and Isaac, Jonathan Isaac, and I mean they're saying, okay, we're ready to compete in the East, and and healthy they will. So that's what I think. Now, down the road, if they don't get it done, then they're going to say they probably gave up too much. But I mean, the reason I don't think many teams will do that is because it was a case where Orlando is saying we need this one thing. We need this guy or a guy like that. And there's not many guys like Desmond Payne. I mean,
right.
He's almost a 50, 40, 90 guy and a good defender and can play off the ball and decent, so, he gives them that good deep shooter they didn't have that they thought Caldwell Pope could provide, which clearly they got the skeleton in their shell of Caldwell Pope.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. If Orlando could have drawn up the right player, I think Desmond Bane hits about as many of the boxes is what they want, because they are already such a good defensive team. And Desmond Bane, his build, his physicality on both sides of the ball, I think it's going to work out great in Orlando, as you kind of laid out. And as for Memphis, where do you go from here if you're Memphis? There's interest in Jaren Jackson, questions around Ja Morant. Are you going to make a run with those guys, or are you looking to rebuild?
Well, it does make me concerned. I mean, or thought is that when you get Cole Anthony,
yep,
and you've got Scottie Pippen Jr.,
yep,
I'm not at all sure that they're not thinking in terms of moving Ja Morant. Now, John, obviously, really a major pain in the ass, but also a major talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I know on the King's Herald we talked about that, and the mixed feelings. I mean, some of the Kings fans, under no circumstances. And others say, well, risk reward. If you could trade Zach LaVine for him, even up or something like that, why wouldn't you do that? And I would, I guess in my mind, I'd probably take that risk. It's a risk.
Mm-hmm.
But, having said it now, getting to the more important one, if in fact the Kings could get Jaren Jackson Jr.,
oh yeah,
to me that's the perfect fit with Sabonis, and the Kings get, they become, I think with just some reasonable point guard play,
right?
They become a real nice, I won't say threat in the West, but have reason to believe they could be maybe.
I'm pretty sure Domas would back off of the
biggest thing is we need a point guard. That's for sure.
when he's picking Jaren Jackson Jr. up from the airport.
Yeah, well, he should, because he's, I think Jaren it does all the things that Domas doesn't. I mean, he's really a shot blocker. Good. He's also a great 3-point shooter, floor spreader. He really can't. He doesn't have post moves, and he's not really good in there. So I mean, if you ever thought about two guys should be fit together perfectly, that'd kind of be it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got my mind really thinking now with what you said about Zach LaVine, because to me, Zach LaVine right now is kind of untradeable. Like if he was a car, you're underwater right now with his contract, you're upside down. But the risk with those two players is not all that dissimilar, because Ja Morant's been hurt a lot. Ja Morant has had a ton of off the floor issues. Zach LaVine, obviously, he's been hurt a lot, not so much off the floor issues. Maybe that's not such a bad trade if you're looking at it.
Yeah, I think there's no question that you have to be concerned about Ja Morant, some of the antics he's pulled. But it's also true he's still young and he's been just with one team. And if in fact you could convince yourself that a change would help him, and we've seen that happen. I always say that, not that Chris Webber is any level of the same pain in the ass, but it's also true that Chris was traded from Golden State to Washington, and Washington wanted rid of him in a short time too because of some of the off-court stuff. Not the same kind of thing of job, but the change of scenery and third team, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And as most of us know, sometimes being a jerk at 20 doesn't mean you'll always be a jerk. That's also true. Sometimes being a jerk at 20, you'll be a jerk at 40.
A bigger one, yeah.
So I mean, there is a risk. There is a risk reward thing. But just from the talent standpoint, if in fact John Morant would be the same kind of kid he was at Murray State before he got the money and all the other stuff that went with it, and he didn't handle it well, handled terribly, he and his dad. But I mean, just the talent of John Morant, a healthy John Morant, and a Keon Ellis as your guard line.
Oh boy,
I think you're better. You're just better.
Wow.
That's a big if.
But it's an if. I think that me personally, I would feel comfortable taking that if. I guess Scott Perry and Vivek would have to consider that. You left us with a lot to think about there, because the Zach LaVine, just untradeable to me. But I guess maybe there is a few situations.
Yeah, and you'd have to think, well, from Memphis standpoint, they just traded their big time shot maker.
Right.
So,
and you got 2 point guards now.
Yeah, you got 2 point guards that you're pretty happy with. Both have proven they can start at times. They're not John Morant talent wise, but you'd feel like you could go down the road with them. And so, yeah, it's one of those things. But I guess my only thought on that, and I don't know if I'm, it'd be tough. It's a terrible, tough decision. You'd have to have a lot of inside information before if in fact they even wanted it was a trade you could do.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would say that I think the way this team is right now, honestly, I almost think you're going to have to take some big swings if you want to turn it around. And as you know, I mean, a lot of the fans may be younger, but the Mitch Richmond for Weber trade was very unpopular at the time.
Hugely.
Because Mitch was such a good community guy, and the rumor on Weber, he's a bad guy, had drug problems, and just at that time minor stuff, but still there were issues, and the team wanted rid of him, and 2 teams had wanted rid of him. And but the Kings were going nowhere, and they were able to get a guy who had the potential to be an elite player in the league, but hadn't yet achieved that for other reasons. And he came to Sacramento and achieved it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think unless you are going to be taking big swings, you are going to be passed up quickly in this NBA. Because I think every team, or most teams that feel like they're close, they're just going to keep swinging for home runs under this CBA.
Yeah, I think you saw, Orlando. That's exactly what that was, as a big swing. And I think that we're going to see San Antonio do that. I mean, I think they are not going to be. They didn't make the playoffs, and Wembanyama at some point they got to figure out and add to that. So in their position to do it, Houston, they're going to, they don't have to take huge risks, but they're going to make changes. They know they're not good enough.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So before I send you off on your paddleboard off to the beacon for a rum runner, are we going to get a game 6 or a game 7 in OKC, or does it end?
I think we are, I guess that could be my bias and hope, but I just think with Indiana, they're close, even without Haliburton, because fortunately for them, TJ McConnell is terrific. He's not Tyrese, but he's terrific. And they got the best coach, and they really have the best bench. And so, but like you pointed out earlier, you need Nembhard to be a little better. You need Naismith to be a little better. You need Obi Toppin a little better. You know pretty much what Miles Turner's going to do, which is not a great deal, but he's going to do what he does. And Siakam's going to be terrific. So, you just kind of pencil that in. So really Naismith, Nembhard, and Toppin all 3 guys just have to play a little better. That's all. and you
A
can,
little bit.
and I think they'll have a chance to send it to Oklahoma City, and then with Haliburton probably could be maybe close to 100% by then, and we'll see. But if you made me bet the farm on who wins this thing now, it's still, I guess the thing that always comes back to me is at the end of the day, the best player on both teams is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's the best guy. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows up every game for the most part. And so he may miss a 15-footer to win it, but if you're going to bet on anybody, that'd be the guy.
Amen. And I can bet on you having a great rest of your week in Tahoe. Thank you so much for joining us. Please thank Mrs. Reynolds for sharing you with us for the last 45 minutes. And
she's more than willing to do that on an even larger segments.
All right. And by the way, Jared, only 2 rum runners if you're going to paddle board all the way out there. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll stay safe. I want to give you and the fans a lot more grief yet. All right.
You're the best. Thank you, Jerry.
See you guys.
All right. Jerry Reynolds. Anyone better? I had no idea he was in Tahoe, and he still did the segment. Incredible. Jerry blew my mind there. He really got me thinking. I did not think, and maybe there isn't, but I didn't even think that there was really any trade scenarios out there for Zach LaVine that could get me thinking to where, like, maybe that could make sense for another team. I mean, realistically, that's very interesting. The Cole Anthony thing, very true. Jerry has been a huge proponent and fan of Scottie Pippen Jr., who's played really well when he's gotten extended minutes. If you have a guy like Scottie Pippen Jr. or Cole Anthony running the show, you need that strong shooting guard. And if Memphis is the risk equal between the players and the pay, I think that is very interesting. I think that's one of the few realistic trades since Zach LaVine has arrived in Sacramento that I could make an argument for both teams. And I'm not saying that as somebody that grew up a Kings fan, and we're not saying that trade's going down because there's going to be a million other suitors that want Ja Morant despite the trouble. But that is a very interesting observation by Jerry, as only Jerry can do. And we found out that Jerry was a lifeguard. How about that? I swear, man, everybody has one of those friends. Seriously, everybody has one of those friends where you bring up something obscure and that friend has a story about it. They've done it. They've been there. Like for me, it's Napes. If we're talking about a city, when I was in, because he travels so much. But Jerry, so he's been a caddy. He's been a great basketball player, coach, GM, lifeguard. Wow, incredible stuff. Imagine Jerry all greased up, sitting there, 18 years old at the resort. Like he said, people coming in week to week, revolving door. Oh my gosh, what good stuff. Anyway, so Jerry's with me when it comes to Indy. He thinks that they could get one with or without Tyrese. I stand by it. Even before he said that, I think Indy, if Tyrese does not play or is on a short leash, and by the way, many of you were asking that question at the start of the show about where does the decision lie usually? Is it the player, the doctor, the organization? Certainly the agents are going to have some say in that as well. Jerry thought organization. So with an organization as strong and as respected and tenured as Indiana, with Carlisle, Larry Bird as a consultant. It's not exactly Scott Perry. It's not exactly Scott Perry sitting you down and saying, you're not playing tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out on that calf. In fact, something new may have already come out on the calf. We'll check that. We are going to get ready to wrap up in a few minutes. Thanks again for being here. Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays are truly the best. Lau Kings took some big swings last year and struck out. It's so frustrating from a couple of standpoints. The best swing that they took, they went to hit a single and it ended up being a triple with Valanciunas. They thought that they were getting a single. The Kings aren't, for as up and down as the season was last year, when Sabonis went down, Valanciunas played so well. The Kings would not have made the play-in if that trade had not been made. They wouldn't have done it. The Zach LaVine, yes, swing and a miss. Why did I say, what is that? Swing and a miss. Am I thinking of Major League? Is it Major League? Bob Uecker? What is it? Like ball 5.
Ball 8.
Ball 8. That's what it is. Zach LaVine, I don't know how to judge it quite yet, other than the contract. But wow, great stuff. That's why I love talking to Jerry. You can only get that in certain places. We are so lucky to have him here on the channel. By the way, if you did not get a chance already to check out the E60 documentary on Scott Pollard called Heart of Pearl, make sure you go find that, seek that out, share it with somebody, even if they're not a basketball fan. It is a human interest story and an important story. Grant had the producer and director, Dan Lindbergh, on the channel last week. You can go back and get some additional insights from Dan and what their goal was when it came to approaching Scott and Don to follow them around, and how the story ultimately transformed, and the fact that it ended up getting aired on Father's Day. It was a perfect storm of the right elements coming into place, and just some good karma on an excellent story, and very good awareness about it's something that you can relate to. I'm sure somebody that you know, a family member, a friend, has dealt with a serious medical struggle. Great stuff. Now, you don't want to, you hate that Scott went through that. You hate that somebody lost their lives so Scott could live. Casey Angel, by the way, is the name of the individual whose heart was given to Scott, but the families get to meet. That's filmed. Check it out, and then check out the piece with Grant and Dan Lindbergh as well, if you have not subscribed already. All of our shows, by the way, available on replay, which you know with YouTube, but you can take us on the go on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. You can find the King's Court with Rhino and Grant shows under If You Don't Like That. It is always a pleasure being able to spend a couple hours with you, an hour with Jerry, having the honor of coming into your homes, your cars, your radios, your ears, whatever it may be, your offices, to talk some Kings basketball. Very appreciative for that. So thank you very much. And big hockey game tonight. Will the Stanley Cup be staying, I should say, in Florida? We will see. I'm looking forward to watching that as that gets going here in just a couple of minutes. Few comments out the door. What's up, Baki? All the way in Greece. Hello, Tadora. Hope you are well as well. IT would be great 10 years ago. Yeah, what a sad story, man. What a sad story. Can you fault Boston? That's where it's like the double-edged sword, right? That's so it's different. Now, it's more of a story that you see play out in football, right? But man, to go through what he went through, to lay it on the line that way, and physically be where he was at after the season, have consequences from that to where you're not able to get paid, which probably would have. Sounds like Euchre.
Ball 8.
It is the great Euchre.
Ball
Patrick.
8.
There you go. Ball 8. Ball 8. So, anyways, I am hoping we see a game 7 in the Stanley Cup play or final, but I'm not sure, man. They are so good. Speaking of Florida on their home ice and aggressive, anything is possible. Stuart Skinner going back into the goal for Edmonton. So we'll see if he can bounce back. Remember, he was pulled 2 games ago, then did not start last game, and he is back in between the posts tonight. All right, we out. We're back tomorrow, 3:00. We'll talk more about everything going on in the NBA, NFL, getting going with OTAs, also NBA draft trades. A lot of meat still on that bone. As of right now, still just a calf strain for Haliburton. So we'll let you know. Pay attention to our timelines if we get word on what that grade is. By the way, last thing, out the door. He will not be on the air tomorrow, but tomorrow is Napes' birthday. Make sure you hit him up on the X at Great Napier Show. Wish him a very, very happy birthday. I will be doing something a little special for him tomorrow on his birthday. So I hope he enjoys his couple of days off. Appreciate all of you. Huge thanks to Jerry for, again, by the way, who gets that good of internet in Tahoe? Are you kidding me, Jerry? I have friends that have worse internet here in Elk Grove. That was incredible. But Jared joining us here on the channel like he does every Tuesday. Thank you to all of you again. We are out of here. Go Kings. Light the beam. Courts dismissed.